Hey everybody, happy Tuesday morning from the Podcast Daily. That's Bill Landis, I'm Austin Ward, and you know what we do every week at this time, which is definitely coming to you on Tuesday morning and not Monday from Big Ten Ohio State Basketball Media Day. We're not in the Schottenstein Center at all, don't worry about that.
This is a green screen.
We're getting ready to talk to Ryan Day, and who else we got? Tim Walton, is that correct?
Yeah, it's funny. It's right. So I think initially we thought we were going to get three coaches. And instead it's Ryan Day, Tim Walton, and Mitch Rossi at the podium.
I requested Mitch Rossi this week. I wanted to talk to him. I miss him.
No, I requested him too. It's just funny to see him on the list with two other coaches.
And then Jerry's like, is it okay if we bring Mitch in on Tuesday? And I'm like, sure. I don't care.
Fullbacks deserve the podium.
We have a lot of questions for him too. But as we do every week as we get ready for the media day in the Woody, not this building where we are right now, we like to figure out what questions we need answered from the Buckeyes this week. We could probably just end this episode right now because it's Rutgers week and skip forward. But I assume that if you are going to take a page out of what I wrote on Monday at Dotting the I's with my 5 questions, it's pretty much exclusively about the health of this team.
Yeah, which is also a common theme, I think, on Tuesdays to figure out. And honestly, it's not even figure out. It's ask who's going to play, get a vague answer, and then try to figure out what that vague answer means. But it starts with Jackson Smith and Jigba. And I think now, for me, it's more of like a timeline question. I don't really think it's like, is he going to play this week? Because I'm almost expecting him not to. I don't really think it's worth it, especially when you look what's coming down the road for them. And the games that they really need him healthy for, like Rutgers is not that game. And it sort of begs the question, well, why did he play against Toledo in the first place if he's still being held back by his leg injury?
Right.
So I think it's a combination, right, of what's the timeline there and maybe how do you think you've handled it to this point, at least in my mind. Yeah,
I've tried to get some guidance and feedback, and I know more about it today than I did last week or Saturday. About that. And I know I'll be interested to hear what Ryan Day has to say about their decision-making process. I feel like my understanding is that Jackson Smith and Jigba, however you test a hamstring, whatever measurable numbers they're looking at, Ohio State felt like he was close to 100% or close enough that Jackson Smith and Jigba wanted to go play against Toledo and that everyone had felt like that was important for him to do so. Now, we can debate whether that's actually true because he wasn't going to be needed to beat Toledo. Turns out he wasn't going to be needed at all against Wisconsin for Ohio State to blow them out. So how they manage this, I don't think that he's going to play against Rutgers. The sense that I got is that Ohio State believes he could play against Michigan State and that he's going to be at the same level, 100%, 95, I don't know. Ryan Day had said it. He wanted his guys to be 100% before letting them go play, which I think is where we're getting tripped up on talking about that. But as I sit here right now, would still be surprised if he plays against Michigan State because you have the bye week after that, and you want to be 100% sure that he's 100% healthy.
Yeah, and it also turns out Michigan State's not very good.
Yeah.
I think maybe a couple weeks ago we would have thought differently about that game, but these next two, Ohio State's a 39-point favorite this week. They'll probably be at least a 3-touchdown favorite, you'd think, even though it's on the road in East Lansing. So I'm not, if you're testing and your doctors say he's good to go and the player says I want to give it a go, then I don't really know what you're supposed to do. So if that's the case, then I won't criticize them playing Jackson against Toledo too much, but he's just so important to what they're doing that you can't force it. And if it means sit them this week, sit them next week, get the bye, and then come back for the stretch run that will probably be a little more difficult, then I guess I'm on board with that. And then you move on down the line from Jackson to Cameron Brown, Denzel Burke. Am I forgetting anybody?
Well, if we're just going to stay at cornerback, you had one more.
Jordan Hancock.
I don't think Jordan Hancock is quite there either, but that's the top 3. That's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, I don't know. Denzel, maybe closer. We kind of thought he was going to play last week, even with the club on his hand. I don't know about Cameron Brown, and certainly Jordan Hancock seems like he's a ways away.
Yeah, I think that Cameron Brown was not in the stadium, and if we're going to, again, we're not doctors.
We are not.
Not yet, anyway. We're trying to get our degrees so that we can break down injuries with more accuracy for you all. But I didn't see him at all in the horseshoe on Saturday night. Typically, that means a head injury, a protocol situation. That's not 100% foolproof, and I am not reporting that is the case right now. That's just conjecture and speculation based on the clues available, which unfortunately, as we made this point before, is basically what we have to do with the way Ohio State is handling all these situations right now.
That's probably another question. How should we interpret the availability report when guys who clearly aren't playing aren't listed on it?
Yeah.
Ryan Day.
America. Ryan Day.
That's my first America.
Yeah, there we go.
I haven't done an America yet. I thought
he was teed up for you.
Felt pretty good.
Yeah, you got to love that. Yeah. Okay, well, is there anything football related that you're curious about this week?
Yeah. Some of the freshmen, and I think you mentioned Caden Curry in your written piece on ohiostate.rivals.com. He is at the top of that list for me. Just is there room for a younger player to continue to carve out a role? But also seeing Sonny Styles on the field against Wisconsin, that's probably opponent specific. They did, it turns out, play some bigger packages in that game. I wasn't so sure they would, but they did. I thought it looked okay. I thought Sonny didn't look like he was in over his head for a kid who's 17 years old and should be in high school. So I'm not saying he needs to supplant one of the guys who's played much more at safety, but is there a continually evolving kind of package to get a guy like that on the field, a guy like Caden Curry on the field? Do you consider giving Dallin Hayden a little more work because he's shown himself to be up to the task when he's on the field? So they're in conference play, but it still feels like they're in tune-up games a little bit, and then you have the bye week after that. So it feels like there's a little bit of an opening for some guys like that to grab a role.
It's the post-pre-con tune-up season.
Something like that.
Intercon. Yeah. Do you think if Lathan Ransom, again, let's just tie this right back into an injury situation.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think that he would have done the same things that Sonny Styles did on Saturday night if he'd been healthy? Or how much of that, as you said, was game plan specific versus could Lathan have filled that same role?
I think he could have, because he filled a similar role, I suppose, against Notre Dame, which is not entirely the same team, but kind of a similar idea, bigger personnel, run the football. So probably. So I get maybe as long as Lathan's available, then maybe that is a roadblock for Sonny. But I don't know. They talked a lot about sub packages coming into the year. They have not done a whole lot of it, and maybe they don't have to. I don't think you should do that kind of stuff just to do it. But right. If they have guys like a Sonny who's pushing for time, or a Caden, I could get on board with trying to find a way to do it.
Ryan Day would be very irritated again. Anytime somebody asks him, hey, you're going to blow somebody out, don't you want to get the young guys in there and play? He bristles at that and says, well, you got to win every game and treat every opponent the same, and that's fine. I respect that, and I understand it. But I think that Kyle McCord needs to throw passes. And that's not just for the future. It's also just in case something happens to C.J. Stroud and you have to put in your backup quarterback for meaningful situations. I get also not wanting to run up the score, be bad sports, rub it in, whatever else, but you only get a limited amount of snaps and games every single year. And Ryan Day's talked often about, well, we were missing these in 2020 and we had other games that they didn't blow them out the way that they wanted to. And, when he's out there, at least let him have one drive, the first one he's out there, where you run the full offense. I don't think it's doing anybody a favor in terms of building a program, developing a quarterback, however else you want to view it, to put him out there and hand off 3 or 4 or 5 times. And, that's not what the offense would look like if he was out there and the game was on the line. So how do you really know? I understand there's the rest of the week to evaluate and practice and all that, but there's really no substitute for live bullets flying, game situation. Those guys on the other side would be trying to stop them.
Right.
He's playing with a hand behind his back if he just has to hand off.
I agree. And Berm has said this before too. If the clock's running, let's play football. And even Greg Schiano, if the game gets to the point we think it's going to get to, I think Greg Schiano would probably prefer to be still playing real football too. And I get it. You can just run the ball and you can get good working that way. If you're Ohio State's young offensive line or whatever young defenders Rutgers might have in the game. But I think you would need to get Kyle McCord more live game experience, whatever that looks like. And there was a little bit of it against Toledo. It wasn't against Wisconsin. All he did was hand the ball off. And he kind of looked pretty bored, if not irritated, doing it.
Yeah.
But he did get to throw the ball a little bit against Toledo, which is nice to see. But I just want to see more of it. Give him the full plate, the whole playbook. even if it's a drive, even if you feel like you're forcing the issue and throwing the ball when you shouldn't be, I think that's all important stuff for Kyle McCord. So I'm hoping the game gets to that point this week and Ryan Day has a similar mindset because he needs it, and I think probably the young receivers need it too.
I like the spin that you put on it, that it would be a benefit for Rutgers to actually, have to defend the pass with their backs.
Can't you see the benefit for Rutgers?
This is for your own
just
good.
Getting stomped out by Ohio State's backups.
Ryan Day, remember how much Greg Schiano helped you in your transition? Return the favor. Right. Air it out in the third quarter.
Yeah.
Fourth quarter.
Then Rutgers can put up a graphic that says like Ohio State 52, Rutgers nothing, but underneath it says developed here.
Got some meaningful reps in the horseshoe. Got a lot better. Anything else, or is that where we end our Tuesday? Because it's Rutgers week. We don't usually ask really probing questions this week.
The one thing that is actually a quasi-real football thing, I find Gavin Wimsatt, Rutgers quarterback, interesting because he's kind of athletic and can maybe do some of the stuff that DeQuan Finn did from Toledo a couple weeks ago. And we're not talking to Jim Knowles this week, so I guess we couldn't get that answer from him, but maybe talk to Tim Walton about it since he's a defensive coach, or Ryan Day or some defensive players throughout the week, just about how they feel about dealing with an athletic quarterback. Because that wasn't the case last week against Wisconsin, but it could be the case this week against Rutgers.
I like the timing of that. With Tim Walton, is you and I had a conversation with Jerry Emig about this. Is that the time you want to bring your cornerbacks coach or somebody in the secondary to talk when you have three of them on the shelf and they get a bunch of injury questions that they probably don't want to answer? Yeah. And then the flip side is, hey, Jair Brown, he got some reps and looked really freaking good. So you get to take some credit for developing those guys behind him. J.K. Johnson as well, a stripe off for Ryan Turner, and Cameron Martinez. Who knows where he's going to line up the next time out there? We'll see. Another question, a good one to ask for Tim Walton. We'll have plenty of those for him and Ryan Day and Mitch Rossi on a Tuesday in the Woody. For Bill, I'm Austin. This has been the Podcast Daily. We'll talk to you later for some Snappy Jays.